we're going to do a couple of things here. First, we're going to have a Q&A with a couple of very important folks in our community. We're going to show you kind of the annual video that you guys are accustomed to seeing. Our video production team put together a lot of the kind of standout moments throughout of 2024 for you to sort of take a look back on. And then we'll do what I'll call our podcast portion of the program. We've got a panel of 4 that'll come up here. I'll ask them some questions. We'll maybe have a few laughs. This is, admittedly, this is not the same as anything you guys have ever done for this. And frankly, if I can tell you guys a little bit of a secret, we've never done this before. Okay? So, if it goes off the rails, it's my fault. If it's great, it's all of them, and I'm really excited to do it. So, we'll get started here. I've got 2 great guests for my first little Q&A here. I've got Interim Superintendent Dr. John Murray, and I've got Chesterfield Police Chief Colonel Frank Carpenter. Welcome them on to the stage, guys. Come on. So one note already, we did not accurately time the amount of time it would take people to get on the stage. So I get to vamp for a second and fill the gap. Gentlemen, come on in, have a seat. Make sure you hit that nice button on the right side whenever we're about to talk. First off, I'd like to welcome you both here. Obviously, this is something I'm guessing fairly new for both of you, so I appreciate your willingness to do this and be part of our, I don't want to call it an experiment, our adventure here today. Dr. Murray, I'll start with you. Before we dig into a little bit of kind of the meat, so to speak, of the things going on for the school system, I always like to give folks a chance when we record the podcast to get a sense of who they're hearing from, right? Who is this person and why am I interested in what they have to say? So obviously, as our acting superintendent, you have a significant amount of experience. Can you tell the folks a little bit about your background and how it is that you came to be involved in this adventure here today?
Adventure is a great way to couch that, especially after a 1:15 a.m. board meeting. So
bless you.
Yeah. So I am John Murray. This is to serve as interim superintendent of this great county is not only a significant responsibility, but a humbling one because indeed a full circle moment for me. I'm a lifelong resident. I started as a kindergartner at Chalkley Elementary School, graduated from Manchester High School, and have committed the past 21 years of my career giving back to this wonderful county. It's where my wife and I chose to raise our family, and it's the best decision that we've ever made. So I taught at Falling Creek and Robius before moving into the administrative lane and kind of worked up that ladder, Dean, AP. I was principal actually of the Colonel's kids, middle school and then high school, before moving into central level leadership where I oversaw the middle school operation through the pandemic, before spending roughly 3 years as executive director of constituent services. July 1, I was appointed as deputy, and then Dr. Dory decided he was going to retire too, so quickly became interim superintendent. So if you're tracking, yes, I am the interim soup and the deputy soup all at the same time. So a great cost and benefit savings to the division, and we look forward to putting those dollars back into programmatically enhancing the opportunities for our children.
That's great. Colonel Carpenter, obviously, given your background, I also want to give you a chance to sort of talk through a little bit of how it is that you, again, came to be sitting here as part of this adventure as well. Tell the folks a little bit about yourself and how it is that you kind of came to be involved in all this.
For those that don't know, I'm Frank Carpenter. I'm the Chief of Police of Chesterfield County Police Department, and truly it's an honor and a privilege to serve in this capacity. I started on this journey probably 31 years ago. It'll be 31 in January, actually, and I started in the city of Petersburg as a beat officer. The opportunity came about at year 7 in the city of Petersburg, where I was able to transition into a pre-certified program here at Chesterfield County. I was in the first pre-certified program and graduated and went to work on the road in Chesterfield County. My experience extends throughout the agency. I went to investigations, worked vice and narcotics for many years, transitioned to what we call our major case section. So I dealt with major investigations involving homicides, officer-involved shootings, those things. I had the opportunity to work back on the road as a sergeant, promoted from sergeant to lieutenant, and in each of these assignments, I've had various opportunities to work in different areas. I don't want to bore you guys with that. But more importantly, I transitioned, became the captain of the administrative staff position to the office of the chief. So I had an opportunity to work closely with the chief, Dupuy at the time, for several years. Was promoted to major and lieutenant colonel, and the rest is kind of history. It's been great. Chesterfield County has been a tremendous opportunity for me. When I look back over my career, 31 years ago, I didn't necessarily sign up to be a chief of police, but people sold into my life. They dropped nuggets. They provided leadership opportunities. And I found myself at a crossroad at some point in time when I was at the National Academy. My current chief decided he was going to retire, Jeffrey Katz. And, I had to ask myself a question. And the question was, do I compete in the process? And I think the National Academy really helped me identify that need to give back to my agency that's been so good to me and this community that's been so good to me. So thank you.
Colonel Carpenter, I want to stay with you for a second. In terms of your past experience, you've been a part of this department, a part of this community for a long time. How would you say that your past experiences are kind of helping to inform the way that you look about the future now, going into 2025 and beyond for your department? How are those experiences helping you shape the way you view your new job?
I think policing has changed over the past 31 years. When you think about it, I came up along the era on the war on drugs, and I think that was interesting at the time, but I think it was a misstep. And when I say that, I say it from the standpoint of there is no war when it comes to your community. It's really a partnership, and it's really about engagement. So the change has really shifted from, in my opinion, from community policing to community engagement. And community engagement means that there's stakeholders at the table, that you can have those tough conversations, and through those conversations, you can come to some agreement.
Dr. Murray, I want to ask you a similar question in terms of your experience and kind of, when you're going through sort of your background, it's interesting to me how each step sort of prepared you for the next step, but then those last few steps, it feels like it happened pretty quick, right? How do you feel like your past experiences, given all the various levels of the school system that you've served in and been a part of, how are those things helping you as you kind of settle into this role as the acting superintendent?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. My point of view is really predicated on two things. One, historic perspective. Again, having grown up here and worked here for over 2 decades, knowing where we've been, why we made the decisions that we did to arrive at where we are, and then using that as a launching off point of where we head next it is very impactful. And then secondly, leveraging the relationships that I have forged along the way to establish such a healthy and positive momentum where I'm compelled to give my best, such that others are similarly compelled. And it really just speaks to a vibrant climate and culture that we're able to provide and foster because we're in the work together with people we know and we trust. So I go at the work choosing to celebrate and contribute more than I criticize. While being critical is important at times, it's not the go first for me, and I think that that gives way to significant dividends. And I would be remiss to not say that I think it's very important for leaders to not forget from where they came. And I think the greatest criticism that I could never reconcile if it were marked on me is not knowing what it's like or forgetting what it's like to be in the trenches. So I try to lead with that mindset and create opportunities of shared leadership and decision-making.
And sort of along those same lines, one of the things that I think has been interesting for me in the time that I've spent working in Chesterfield has been the way that the community sort of endears itself to those that are not just a part of it, but those who are around it. And I'm curious, Dr. Murray, to get your sort of point of view on what makes Chesterfield unique. What makes this community, this county, what makes it unique in your mind?
Yeah, so I think what's special about Chesterfield is people don't realize how large we are. We're one of the 65 largest school divisions in the country. And when you're a bedroom community like we are, making the big feel small is so very important because it more deeply tethers and connects people to their experience. So I think that community engagement is so very important, and I'll kind of highlight bird's eye views, some of the ways that we get at that work. I see Amy Bartolotti's in the room. Her office, Family and Community Engagement, does significant work on providing opportunities to onboard families. One of our benchmark programs out of her office is the Learning With You program, where we have become a district that is a 20+% Spanish-speaking community. And so we engage those families, break down that language barrier, and answer their questions, but also onboard them in the way of Chesterfield County Public Schools and the county at large. Another opportunity that we've seen enhanced significantly over the years is through our Communities in Schools program, where we're able to put wraparound services in our most vulnerable communities. We ribbon cut on our 12th and 13th CIS schools under the leadership of Ashley Hall this year, and we look forward to expanding to our 14th and 15th schools next year. I saw Laura Height in the room. I'd be remiss not to shout out our partnership with the Chesterfield Education Foundation, who give way to a lot of innovative ideas at the granular level in our classrooms, and really just transforming the experiences of our students, who then go home and they engage their parents, who then engage us more deeply back because they're excited about the experience of their kids. And one final thing that I would highlight as we're in the people business is in those densely populated Spanish-speaking communities, we've been able to supplant bilingual liaisons at those schools so that parents and families feel like they have a resource there to more deeply connect them.
Colonel Carpenter, I want to ask you a similar question. You mentioned community engagement and the idea that the way that you see policing and the way that you see sort of the way that the department has to embrace that aspect. How would you characterize Chesterfield's uniqueness in that standpoint, and what stands out to you about this community, and why were you so eager to be not just a part of this department? And I mean, let's be real, the process to become chief of police here is very different than it is in a lot of other places, right?
Absolutely.
You can thank the various boards of supervisors and folks for a charter that requires Chesterfield to do something that nobody else does. What made it so important for you to go through that process for this community?
I think what makes Chesterfield County community so different is the community are the police and the police are the community. And when I say that, the relationship that we have with our community is second to none. And I speak from a perspective of being in a national academy with over 200 different organizations from around the world. The one common theme is that we have something special here. I like to call it the secret sauce. We have a community that is willing to engage with our police department, that's willing to share their concerns. We're in a position where we're in spaces, much like the schools, where we're having those conversations with those communities that feel maybe that they're not heard. But more importantly, the relationship, and I say more importantly, equally as importantly, the relationship that we have with county government, the different departments. The relationship is second to none. There's a team approach to everything, and that's not necessarily the case around the country as well as around the world. When you stop and you think about it, the fact that Chesterfield County has such a robust community that cares about the police department, they care about public safety, they understand the importance and the value of public safety. Our school partners are equally locked in step with us as far as the safety of our most vulnerable population, our youth and our elderly. That's not normal. And when I share my experiences with those people from around the world, they were just in awe. And to talk about, the support of county administration, the board of supervisors, and things like that, that's not the case. And so I like to call it the secret sauce. The fact that we have that relationship at so many levels really allows us to go forth and do noble work and to legitimize the trust within the community. And granted, we're not perfect. We make mistakes, but the fact that we're able to come to the table and own those mistakes and make the necessary course corrections are key to that relationship. So that's what makes us special.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. The one thing that I find interesting in both of your kind of scenarios here, you both have sort of worked your way up through these organizations. And I'm curious, Colonel Carpenter, we'll start with you on this one. How would you say the things you've learned, the lessons you've learned, how are you going about kind of applying those? And how does that sort of impact the department? Because a lot has changed for policing over the years, to your point from earlier. How are your past experiences, those things you've learned along the way, how are you sort of taking that and kind of actually attributing it to your day-to-day, to your department's day-to-day?
Yes, not forgetting where you come from, like Dr. Murray shared. So many times we can elevate to a certain level and we lose focus on the line level. The line level is critical to the mission. And making sure that you recognize that, there's mistakes of the heart and there's mistakes of the mind. And the difference between the two are character. And as long as we don't have character issues, we can work through the mind issues, the mistakes of the mind. But, making sure that the line level understands that they're supported, that, they can go forth and do the work, and that expectation of command staff is that they operate in excellence. Because our community deserves excellence. And more importantly, we go above and beyond the normal call for service. We want to make sure that when we have an experience with someone, it's probably going to be the worst day of their life. But we go on as business as usual, but we need to make sure that we provide essential customer service to the community.
Dr. Murray, same sort of idea for you. Again, you've worked your way up. You have seen a lot through the various rungs of that ladder, so to speak. I'm just curious how those lessons that you've learned and over the years, how do you apply those in your current role, and what does that look like for the division?
Yeah, I think it really distills down most simply to responsibly adapting over time. So as an example, when I graduated in 1999 with my good friend Simeon over here in the crowd, we were a school district of around 50,000 kids, and now we're almost at 65,000. So just some rough math, that delta would fill 7 of our high schools. In that same time frame, we've gone from textbooks and pagers as the main form of communication or immediate communication to Chromebooks and artificial intelligence and cell phones. So building in mechanisms that apply accountability and boundaries, but not barriers, so that we can continue to help our kids meet the growing demand of tech booms, and just be college and career ready. I would also say that currently we're in a significant CIP where we're building several sites. We've got middle school underway, an elementary school, or 2 in fact, a new central office that's soon to be complete, new high school that'll come in 2 years, so on and so forth. So growing with that and working with our county partners is paramount. So very appreciative of our Board of Supervisors friends in that process. But again, it goes back to responsibly adapting to meet the growing demand. Some other things that have kind of emerged over time, you think about the social emotional care and our commitment and focus there for staff and students. I could go on. I don't think you want me to, but just to kind of illuminate a few.
I appreciate that. Colonel Carpenter, last question for you, and I'll get you out of here on this one. Obviously, even though it feels like Thanksgiving was like 37 seconds ago, Christmas will be here very quickly, and then soon it'll be 2025. And this is really the first year, right, for you to take, your first real steps forward. I mean, I feel like you're probably, as busy as all get out right now, just trying to, kind of keep it going. What does 2025 look like for you? When you look ahead, what do you see for the department and for yourself as you sort of really settle into this role that you're still getting your feet wet in as it stands right now?
Yes, settling into the role of chief of police has been, life-changing, to say the least. As I look at the agency, a lot of what we're already doing, I pretty much co-signed on. And we're doing a lot of things that are great. I think just like anything else, you can't settle for great. You continually push towards exceptional. And as we look at things, what I have found is during the course of my career, there were areas within policing that weren't necessarily prioritized, and one of which is officer wellness. My vision and goal as a chief of police is to make sure that the men and women who decide to serve their community leave better than they came in. So many times this profession takes and takes and takes, but we have to be equipped as leaders to be able to give back to our people, so then they can go out and serve the community with the glass full. And so officer wellness, whether it's financial wellness, whether it's physical, nutritional, all the things that encompass success beyond the job, that is going to be my main focus, to make sure that we're equipping the men and women to go out and that they're able to then go back to their families and be whole and then serve the community and be whole. This officer wellness thing really equates to the end goal, right? When they leave, they are better than when they came in. I think about myself 31 years ago. Had someone just told me to invest in a 457 earlier with more money when I had it, where would I be today? But more importantly, equipping the young person at 21 years of age and sharing with them that this job is going to take from you, but don't let it take from your family. Don't let it take from your life, your health. Make sure that you're doing the things necessary to be a better version of yourself so you can go out and serve the community 100%. So the long and short of it is my initial goal, and I'll have more goals to come, but really centers around wellness, because if you have a healthy culture and you have a healthy organization, they're able to go forth and do great work in the community.
Dr. Murray, I'll ask you a similar question to get you out of here. When you look ahead at 2025, you mentioned all the different sort of schools rising from the ground, it feels like. I mean, one of the things that folks will see in this video here in a few minutes is, man, there were a lot of ribbon cuttings, and there was a lot of groundbreakings and things happening in the county, and a lot of that stuff was school related. When you look at 2025, what do you see for your division as it goes forward?
So we have several irons in the fire, and I'll touch on a few, but I want to emphasize it off of one key point. Relationships and partnerships matter. When I entered into this role, it was very important, again, to leverage past relationships for continued or enhanced success. And so there's been a lot of effort and strategic effort between CPD, as an example, and the school system on some things that we could have better aligned, and we've done that work thanks to a longstanding relationship that Colonel Carpenter and I are fortunate enough to have had. And similarly, we're in the middle of $1 billion budget, and so working with Board of Supervisors and Dr. Casey, who I've known, over my tenure here, has given some very immediate traction so that there isn't this learning curve, so to speak. Sure, there is some of that, but not as it applies to the who's doing the work and will it impact or stall us doing what is needed to be done. We are in a revision year for our strategic plan, so our long-term strategic plan that comes at a very opportune time as the VDOE has put out a new performance framework, so we're able to kind of look at what our roadmap was for the last 5 years, take from it what we like, make it better, but improve it as well. So we look forward to doing that lift that we're beginning right now through the spring. As you mentioned, we're opening a lot of buildings. That creates a lot of excitement. Also, maybe some consternation as we go through redistricting exercises like we did last night and we'll continue to do over the next few years. And then lastly, I would say that teacher recruitment and retention is top of mind this time of year. We're opening a new building that comes with a need, but we also want to make sure that we are attracting the very best to Chesterfield and hanging on to them. So continuing to strategize means by which to do that most effectively.
Well, gentlemen, I very much appreciate your time. When we conceived this idea, I had no idea it was going to be that great. So I really appreciate everything you just put out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so I get to be quiet for a few minutes. You guys get to watch a video and you don't have to hear me talk. That's great for all of y'all in the room, I'm sure. Our video department has put together, like I said, this is, I think, part of a standard portion, right, of the State of the County program, is this sort of look back at the year that was. We're very excited to show it to you, and let's cue that video.
The administration of a constitutional oath is much more than a ministerial function following an election. The administration of the oath is an act of free citizens conferring a sacred trust upon a fellow citizen.
As you cut this ribbon today, we are not only opening doors, but also creating opportunities for learning, exploration, and personal growth. Libraries are the heart of any community.
To be part of an environmental initiative where we are doing what's right, we're reducing our reliance on fossil energy, show our citizens that we're doing the right thing, that we do care about the environment, we're taking steps to protect the environment the best way we can.
Just because of this event, we're able to put over 40,000 meals on the plates of people who live in our community.
When our fire and EMS units got there, the person was already converted to a rhythm and starting to come around. So it definitely made a difference.
He had come back, and it was all because of that AED shot.
You know, I call them my pickleball angels because, I really believe that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them.
To showcase Chesterfield County as an outdoor community and an outdoor destination. Chesterfield County is full of experiences, full of exploration, and that's what today is all about.
It just makes you proud to be a part of your own community, your own county. 275 years and such a great county with a rich history. I thought it was a great opportunity all around, very exciting.
Of course, we all know that schools are more than just bricks and mortar. Schools are where memories are made, friendships are formed, dreams take flight, and futures are built.
More importantly for us as a park system, we're doing this planting in 8 of our park locations, and we are making purposeful reinvestments in all of our existing parks and coming back and planting trees that are native to this area.
Projects like this show that affordable housing looks just like any other kind of housing, and it sends a message that we care about all our residents and we want to give them an opportunity to have stable, secure housing.
I really appreciate Chesterfield County making the investment in our female student athletes. This is outstanding.
to the residents of Matoaca, this is your fire station. Please know that the firefighters assigned to the station stand ready to respond at a moment's notice in your time of need.
We came back from this deployment with 0 injuries, and that is a testament to the amount that the county supports our teams to be able to train on a regular basis.
Those recognized today have created an incredible legacy that will live on in the hearts and minds of people they influence. Their principles, philosophies, and achievements serve as an inspiration to follow and learn from.
Our real property tax rate is the lowest in over 50 years now.
We showcase our athletes that have come forward and demonstrated sportsmanship, integrity, and brought such a positive light to the community.
Your next GRTC bus stop is your couch.
Yeah.
Right? You know, you don't have to get up. You can just sit there and say, hey, I got to go to school. I got to go to the library.
Right.
It's time to roll.
Right.
Click. Here comes the bus.
Right.
It's an honor and a privilege for me to serve as the police chief of Chesterfield County Police Department and to be in a position where I can continue to make the police department a better place.
All right, I'd like to, and I guess again, welcome you. I don't know how that works, to a bona fide episode of the podcast in front of actual humans. Got to be honest, when we did this for the first time, we were on a softball field, and I'm very glad to say that Bill Figge is here today, who was in the first episode. He was my first guest. We talked about the softball team. So welcome back, Bill. How are you? You can say that you were there for the first one and for the first live one. The only person in the room that can do that. That's great. All right, before we get started, let me go around and introduce everybody. Or actually, I'm going to let you introduce yourselves and give folks a little bit of a taste of who you are. You have to go last. No, you have to go last. We'll start on the end with Stephanie.
Of course, I have to go first. I'm Stephanie Brown. I'm the Director of Procurement.
Jesse Smith, Deputy County Administrator for Community Development. Also, like Dr. Murray, a lifelong Chesterfield resident, graduate of Manchester High School a few years before him.
Hi, I'm Katie Kaminsky. I'm the Social Media Coordinator for Chesterfield County.
And last but not least, I'm Joe Casey. Pleasure of serving as your county administrator and pleasure of serving amongst the 5 board of supervisors that are in the room today. Thank you.
Well, folks, I really appreciate your time. And again, just like with Dr. Murray and Colonel Carpenter, being along with me for this journey. Dr. Casey, I'll start with you. When we watched that video, when we mentioned it earlier, just a number of, I feel like every time I turned around, there was another ribbon cutting, another groundbreaking, all kinds of fun things. When you look back at the year that was 2024, what are some of the things that really stand out to you? And give me some of your thoughts on the year that was 2024 so far.
Well, seeing all those ribbons cut and dirt flying around, it reminds me, my mom used to always tell me, don't get your good shoes dirty and don't run with scissors. So I may have to ask for my mother's forgiveness because that's all we seem to do over the last year. And it's not just me. Hopefully you saw the line of people who were part of that exercise, board members, school board members, fire personnel, citizens, partners, students. So again, it's not just me running around. We are all running hard each and every day. You know, just seeing that, and we went to what's called a topping out ceremony this last year with Springline, with the Timmons project, you know, and it clicked on me, you know, the private sector can't have all that fun. So I've talked to Dr. Murray and our general services, and we need, you know, the ribbon cutting and the groundbreaking, but we probably need to celebrate in between also. Topping out ceremonies where everybody kind of signs the steel beam. It's the last beam put into the structure. Big moment in a construction project. And I just look forward to the day to seeing a lot of students sign their names with their parents and just have that sense and feeling of accomplishment. My kids did that actually at Lynchburg Steel many years ago as part of the 911 Freedom Tower project, where they invited anyone to come sign a beam, and my kids still talk about that as a powerful memory. So I did get Dr. Murray's clearance that actually may be a permissible activity, and if we have to adjust his contracts in some of these new schools just for a pause in construction, then so be it. But you know, this last year, you know, whether it's, you know, public facilities, fire stations, schools, you know, parks and other facilities, GRTC transit routes, it's all the other partnerships that we have, and new businesses, new medical facilities, new affordable housing projects, new trails, and so forth. So each and every one of them has their own partnership and contingency of an audience that comes out, and each one is special. There's, you know, we saw a new business open up where it was a family having their first bricks and mortar owned business, small business, to an international company that's trusting us as a community with their international investment. We're there seeing somebody who's needing the housing services, the transit services, maybe addiction recovery services, medical services, enabling them to not traverse as far, or our EMS to traverse as far. So we're all working together to really listen. And my theme for today is really just the team that we are. You're seeing Team Chesterfield up here. There's many localities that would never have a police chief and a school superintendent sitting next to each other, or at least being part of this exercise. Right. And that's who we are. We are a team, but you are the team owners, the citizens and business of Chesterfield County. You pick, you know, in essence, the general manager of this team, 5 elected officials on the board side, 5 on the school side. The general managers pick the coach. And just like everything in sports, you know, if the coach is having a bad year, you get a different coach, I think, the next year. So you can be coach of the year one year, but, you know, come January 1st, I got to start winning again. So thank you.
Jesse, one of the things, so Dr. Casey touched on a lot of different things. He did not specifically mention transportation specifically, but I feel like there's so much news, so to speak, right? So much to update on. And if you think about last year's State of the County, transportation was obviously a huge portion of that. When we look at various projects, be it Powhite, Woolridge, you know, all those kinds of things, give me some updates on the transportation side, and what kind of information do folks need to know about the transportation aspects on your plate?
Sure. Yeah, I think the one that we always get the most questions about is the Powhite Parkway, however you want to pronounce it. I grew up here, so I'll call it Powhite.
It's Powhite, for sure.
I'm going with Powhite then. So, yeah, I mean, that's been a topic of conversation as long as I can remember. You know, I've been with the county for 23-ish years now, and we've been talking about it ever since I've been there. This is the closest we've ever been to actually constructing the Powhite Parkway extension. So I did want to say, you know, thank you to the Virginia Department of Transportation. They're currently handling the environmental document for us. We actually had a large community meeting here about a month ago to go over multiple alignment alternatives and really allow folks to give input on what they want to see. All told, I would say we're probably still about a year away from having environmental permit in hand to be able to build that. Once we have that, then it's really just a small matter of a few $100 million to actually build it.
Just a few.
Just a few. You know, and we used to always think that was insurmountable, but I will say, you know, with the support of this board, we had our largest single issuance for transportation project solely, which was $300 million, which we've never done before. You know, when I started here, if we did 5 or 10 million, we thought we were doing a lot. Now we have $300 million, and I've been told we have to spend it all within 3 years. So we've got our work cut out for us, but the good part of that is there's plenty of work, and you know, building schools and providing infrastructure, all of that ties together. So yeah, we're doing lots of stuff, but you know, certainly excited to do it.
And in addition to that, you've obviously got Woolridge, you've got Nash. Any updates on that for folks?
So Nash Road, it's about a $40 million project for those that you live, you know, in the Highlands or points east of here. It's under construction now. The big excitement on that one is that, you know, during construction, we found not one, but 18 bodies buried in the ground that we didn't know were there. So we dealt with that. We've relocated those folks and been very reverent, found ancestors and all that. So it's you know, a little bit of a hiccup, but still moving. Woolridge Road, we anticipate that connection from Old Hunter to 288, which you know, finishes out that interchange, will be under construction next year. So yeah, just really excited for both of those projects to either get to completion or construction.
Katie, I don't know, in Dr. Casey's little analogy there, which was fantastic, by the way, and I'm totally stealing that at some point. The GM, coach, I don't know where we are. I don't know if that makes me the bat boy. I think
I'm just the personality hire. I don't really know.
You know what you are? You're the person on the microphone that hypes up the crowd.
Yep.
And then they get T-shirts and such.
For sure.
But on a serious note, though, one of the challenges of your job, right, is on a daily basis, you're trying to take things like Jesse just talking about transportation, which is, again, very important information, right? But you're trying to make it interesting, right? You're trying to make it fun. You're making it engaging. And I'm just curious.
It was not interesting and fun.
Oh, no, you did a great job. It was awesome. I learned things.
That wasn't what I said at all. But in terms of, like, how do you do that? I'm guessing this is a question you get a lot from people who follow any of our social accounts, which, for the record, if you're not, you should be, because folks like her do an incredible job. But in terms of making government interesting and fun, how do you do that?
Well, I know all of you follow government accounts for fun. That's what I do in my spare time. No, sometimes it's very dry. And I think it comes back to, Dr. Casey has said this a few times, that you think initially that government is boring until you start to sift through it, right? And you realize that government is for people. It's made up of people. People are behind the government. And so when you find out that there's resources, real resources in your community that are for you, like, that's exciting. You have to sometimes put a spin on it, right? You're gonna hear trending sounds. You might see us dancing sometimes, some of the silly stuff, but there's always a reason behind that. And so it's intentional. You take the time to figure out how to connect with people, because at the end of the day, they are the ones that we are serving.
Yeah, and I feel like every time I turn around, you're asking one of us. Do you do this do you go to their offices and ask them to do silly stuff like look sad because everybody else is joking about Spotify rap?
You're really good at that. Like, if you need a guy to kind of look sad,
I don't know what that
is waiting for our that's turn. Like he's good at that. Yeah,
I know.
Procurement wants to, yes.
I don't know what that says about me. In terms of making things interesting and fun, Stephanie, let's talk about procurement. You know, it's because I love, you know? I kid because I love. So in terms of trying to make things interesting, right? Or in maybe even not the interesting piece, just to educate. I feel like for your shop, there's a lot of that, because as you know, as most folks in this room probably know, or maybe even you don't, let's start here. How would you sort of define what procurement is? And can you help maybe demystify the process of how all of it works?
I'd like to say it's magic, but in actuality, there's a lot more paperwork, so it's not magic. You know, simplified, I would say that we are the department that is obtaining goods and services so that the county and schools can do their job. We are kind of the backbone, and we are behind the scenes many times, but we are in that support role to make sure that everything is working properly. And yes, it is a little confusing sometimes. Maybe think of us as professional shoppers, and instead of trying to find Black Friday deals, we're out negotiating contracts for fire trucks, the new school construction that you saw, anything and everything that the county needs, our life-saving AED supplies.
And in the process of doing that, are there certain, I don't know, call them standards, but how do you make sure that process one thing to the next happens the same way?
So there are rules and regulations that we have to follow. We have
Right.
a team that works very diligently to ensure that, we're not only following the rules, but we are obtaining the best value for our taxpayers.
Yeah.
They will definitely let you know if you're not following the rules.
True story.
I will confirm that for sure.
Dr. Casey, obviously, one of the things that, we put a lot of, you put a lot of emphasis into the idea of strategic thinking, right? And making plans, whether that's succession planning, whether that's down the road, just kind of looking ahead. And for us, Blueprint Chesterfield is obviously a big part of how we go about sort of looking at the priorities and the plans for the future. And I'm just curious to get your thoughts on how you would explain the foundational nature of Blueprint Chesterfield and why that's so important to the organization as a whole.
Sure, and real quickly, I just want to go backwards because Stephanie doesn't like to have shout-outs about her, but she was a top finalist nationally for what she does in procurement, one of the top 3 people across the country. So when there you go.
Thank you, Dr. Casey.
I tried getting her to come to a board meeting for recognition, so I had to actually get her as part of this to recognize her. And the other thing I didn't mean to leave out transportation and all our celebrations. It's just that ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings, especially ribbon cuttings on a road while everyone's honking behind you is not the most good backdrop.
That's very true.
We need our people to get through the road and not be waiting
true.
for it. So, but the Powhite extension is perfectly positioned for a ribbon cutting and a groundbreaking. And I like to announce, actually, when we do that, will be also the announcement of the taking down of the VDOT extension tolls. So that 75-cent toll, there you go.
Now, see, I thought you were about to say that we were going to do another podcast there, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, take down that toll, Mr. Gorbachev, as someone told me once. But
Russia does not control the tolls, just so we're clear. This is...
But in fairness, VDOT is a partner in that, and VDOT and the county made a promise many years ago that once the bonds were paid off by those that use the road, the tolls come down. So I want to give a shout out to VDOT. That's a transition process. It's actually a last project, but again, both of those may be occurring around the same time, so everyone is invited. Going back to Blueprint, yeah, honestly, when I did my research about coming to Chesterfield County, I wasn't homegrown like some of the predecessors that were up here on stage just a moment ago. I came from across the river, and so I did a lot of research. If this is where I wanted to set up not just a job, but my home for the rest of my professional career. And Blueprint was one of those pieces and parts. I'll give credit to my predecessor. Some of them are still working with the county. And for those that don't know, that's sort of the county's way of saying strategic plan. And I looked at a lot of organizations over my career, public and private, especially when I was in the private sector. And people write these strategic plans that are 100-plus pages, and they're so detailed and onerous, and so many things that they're listing, and you have no idea what's important to them, and then you have no idea what they're actually doing every day. And nobody reads it except for the person who wrote it. So, what Chesterfield's Blueprint is actually on one sheet of paper. There's basically 6 phrases as far as what we want to keep our focus on. Excellence in public service, community and individual wellness, safe and secure community, thriving communities, lifetime learning, and vibrant economy. So that's basically who we are. And each and every one of us works every day, not just through one of them, but possibly all of them together. And, we also have very simple phrases for each one, like 3 or 4 bullets below each one. And using the schools as an example, that they are, noted really in essence throughout all of it, if you think about it. But as far as the focal point of, again, the lifetime learning, we have something for schools called, lifelong student progress and success. Pretty simple. What's behind it may be more complicated. What's behind it's lots of pieces and parts that have to work together between schools and counties. But more so, what I like about our Blueprint, this isn't the county's document, it is the people's document, it's the business's document. We wouldn't be able to do this at all without all the partnerships that we have in place and all the ones that we're trying to acquire each and every day. That is also part of the team.
And Stephanie, I feel like, with priorities for the organization, one of the priorities I know for your department is to speak directly to folks, many of them maybe even like folks in this room, right? Because I feel like a lot of folks on this stage, we talk to people out there, right? But yours might be one that fits perfect for this specific room because the county is, for lack of a description, and even it sounds cliche, open for business, right? How do you define that? What does that mean to you for the county to be open for business? And what are sort of maybe the central tenets, so to speak, of how you guys go about doing what you do?
I do appreciate the opportunity to speak to the room, knowing that we have a lot of business owners here today, and we are absolutely open for business. We appreciate the opportunity to connect with the local businesses and want them to participate in the process. We operate out of fairness. We want to have an open process, and we want to have accessibility. And sometimes, participating in government procurement can be a little bit intimidating if you've never done it. And what we hope to do is to, meet you where you are, be a resource to you to help you understand what that process is, be available to answer questions. We have an e-procurement system where we publish all of our and push out all of the opportunities that are available. So if you're interested in doing business with the county, we encourage you to register. And, even if you're not registered, you can view our website and, look at any opportunities at any time, even without registration. We need to boost our clicks because I'm pretty sure we're nowhere near the county's social media sites.
Speaking of social media, God, that was a heck of a segue. Well done. Katie, we talked a little bit about making things interesting and fun, and there's information that we have to share on a regular basis, right? And you do that across social media. And I'm just curious, what would you say are kind of those central tenets for how you go about doing your job as a social media coordinator and helping to share that information and get stuff out?
Yeah. So Jesse talked about being here for 23 years, right? It's amazing. This is my first year in this role, and I feel like it helps me think of things from a different perspective, from a fresh perspective. So 2024 has looked like maybe just readjusting what our central tenets are. One of the things that I kind of coined is the EACH acronym. It's, engaging your audience with accurate information creatively through hooks or humor. It doesn't always have to be funny, but it needs to be engaging. Someone needs to have a reason to stop scrolling, because if you're like me and you're scrolling, you have maybe 3 seconds to get someone's attention. We know that, right? And so it's taking that extra step of, okay, if we know that we have to put out information about transportation or procurement or whatever it is, we need to make sure that it's something that someone's actually going to stop for. So taking that extra time to make it just a little bit flashy, whatever you have to do to get someone's attention so that they retain that information. That's why we retain, I'm sure lots of you can spit off lyrics from your favorite song or songs from 20 years ago. It's because there's that part of your brain that remembers things when you've chosen to put it in an engaging manner, in an engaging matter. Another thing that I really try to do is to use pictures and videos of real people in our community. It's one of my favorite things to do. Brad is all over our social media.
Okay, whoa, easy. I don't know all over. I'm not Debbie.
And you're not
Actually,
Debbie.
wait, hold on.
Nobody's
Let's do this.
Debbie.
Let's show them. Let's show them a little bit. Can you play the reel? Because speaking of Debbie, she'll be the one that you're all in love with at the end of this, okay?
Yes.
Making music.
Don't ask me how we did it. We just did it. It was hard.
Stay hydrated. Check on your friends and neighbors.
Go roaming with me, Arboretum Edition.
Oh, I wasn't sad. I just needed a...
Hey, I'm here for the shred event.
Oh, this is a paper shredding event.
Wrong event, Debbie.
Meet again, Sheriff. You're driving, and I'm still on the right side of the fence.
You might not be able to trust fall, but you can trust that we fall back this Sunday for daylight saving time. I think we did it!
See, I told you. Yeah. How many for the one at the end? Because that's the big one, right? How many? Where are we at with that one? Last you checked.
I think we have like 8 million views or something.
Yeah. Debbie's a star.
She is.
Matter of fact, we
truly.
were going to bring her today and let her do this, but she
Yes.
said this was below her.
Yes.
So
she literally gets recognized in public. It's silly.
It is fun to walk through the county building with her because people will see her walking and be like, because they all recognize her because she's all over. I can't believe you get her to do the stuff you do.
Of using real people, right? People are tired of seeing just static images. Anybody can do that. And there's times where you have to do that, but if you can get someone behind you that believes in doing it with you, all of a sudden you've gotten them to buy into your community, into what's important at the end of the day.
Now, Jesse, one of the things I think that Katie gets the most questions about, or if it comes up, affordable housing is something I think that we get a lot of traction on social, whether it's folks commenting, folks asking questions, those kinds of things. I'm curious from your point of view, can you give me sort of, I mean, maybe it's best if we even define the term, what affordable housing really is, and then also, too, what are some of the things that Chesterfield's been working on in that arena?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to define affordable housing because it really depends on the person and their income, but sort of the traditional definition is someone that makes less than 60% of area median income. What can they afford? And that would be deemed affordable. When you get down to something like 30% of area median income, then you're in that deeply affordable range. You know, quite frankly, we really don't have any housing stock for sale in the county that most of those folks can even purchase. You know, one exception, and you saw it in the video, is the Ettrick Landing project. So that was a partnership between us, the Maggie Walker Community Land Trust, to take what was the Ettrick Annex, right? An old school, we conveyed it to them, partnered with some of our nonprofits, and I'd be remiss to say that, you know, we can't do any affordable housing, any rehab, any of that without our nonprofit partners. So we partnered with them to create 10 permanently affordable units in Ettrick, down at the southern end of the county. I will also say that the actual cost to build those homes, and I'm just using ballpark numbers, was about $400,000 each. We then used local, state, and federal subsidies to get them down to a sales price of around $200,000, so people in that 60% of AMI could even afford them. So it really takes a lot of things to make affordable housing happen. It's a combination of funding, political will. The board has been very supportive, and also partnerships with nonprofits.
And Dr. Casey, I feel like when you mentioned sort of priorities, you mentioned blueprint, I feel like in terms of the sort of big picture, there's lots of things that you're sort of, as a county, as an organization, a lot of things we're sort of trying to figure out a way to address, right? Affordable housing being one of them. Obviously, you go about this, all of the work that you do, and you try to be transparent in the way that you're doing. And I know for you, transparency has obviously been a big focus. The financial transparency webpage, for example, was something we've added to the website recently. Why are things like that so important? Why is transparency so crucial, in your opinion, to an organization like ours?
Well, you know, transparency like affordable housing has many definitions, and actually any definition that a citizen states as far as how they define transparency is the definition I will use. So it's a very elongated statement, but, you know, government needs to have their people know who they are and what they're doing. As I mentioned, the strategic plan we have, it's a simple document, an easy read. You know, we're not a top 10 list locality that these are our top things we're going to do this year. I've gotten in trouble with staff because I started outlining, here's all the things I want to do over the next year, and they have me usually stop at 80, saying that's enough for this year. But I'm like,
we made a mistake. It had him take the numbers away, so he took that as carte blanche. He could have as many as he wanted. So I think we got up to like page 15 one time, and we just had to say that's it. We can't take it anymore.
Because we're all things to all people, and when you have 380,000 people and thousands upon thousands of businesses. So my point is, you know, we could be simplistic in saying, here's our top 10 things we want to do, but that's stopping and starting arbitrarily. There's so many people, so many needs, so many partnerships too. We have more than 10 partners, if you will, that we rely upon to do their share, nonprofit or otherwise. I mean, I see a few of them in the audience today. I see Chamber RVA, our higher ed partners with Brightpoint and Brian Stratton, and South University is here, GRP, RRT. I'm going to forget everything that's an acronym that you can put 3 or 4 letters together in different ways. They are all here, and they're all needed. It goes without saying. But going back to the word transparency, I'm actually the first person that all the new employees meet as part of employee orientation. And I don't know why we do it. We usually do it on the earliest, on a Monday morning, which is no way to start a job, but I'm the warm-up act for them. But what I do is I focus on earning the people's trust. And to me, that's so important. And trust to me is transparency leads in trust. And, the other words I use for the trust formula is, engagement, performance, and accountability. And all of them have to work together. If we have 12,000 employees between the counties and schools, we have to all earn people's trust each and every day incrementally as a team. And all it takes is one wayward employee to lose a citizen's trust. And I will tell you, while Katie is the expert in social media, the word that can spread about losing trust amongst a citizen to citizen will spread faster than any viral video that we would ever make. And we would never counter that. So we have to figure out how to step in and intervene. We all have bad days, and I tell all the new employees this, and I think Dr. Murray said as well. If you're having a bad day emotionally, physically, mentally, something's causing you not to be firing on all cylinders, for which we need to do, tell your teammates that, hey, can you step in for me, help me? A great basketball team, the starter will say to the coach, don't put me in today. We're not going to win as much as we would with John Doe, who maybe sitting on the bench. An even better team, the other teammates even recognize something's not right. We're not there yet, and I don't think any organization's there yet, but we're trying to be. But going back to transparency, it goes without saying, and I saw Thad Green from the Richmond Times-Dispatch here, great reporter, for the Times-Dispatch, but spread very thin. When I first came to Chesterfield County, I think there were over 100,000 printed editions of the Times-Dispatch. I've been using the Times-Dispatch since 1980s when I went to University of Richmond. Over 100,000 copies 10 years ago. There are 24,000 printed copies coming out today of the Times-Dispatch. 10 years ago or so, 70,000 Chesterfield Observer papers were sent out weekly, most of them to home addresses, free, gone. The Village News, which once served the Chester area, and when I'm saying Chester area, the greater area, very well. Not just local news, but local government and schools accountability, gone. What has risen is everyone is now becoming a journalist through social media. Do you know what ethics are involved in journalism for social media sites? I think it's around 0. But having said that, so now we are becoming that business of information. But again, the suspicions of government, you have to be careful. We have to be very mindful. People have to call us and find out the facts, do the research, making sure what we're saying is actually right, and we encourage that. We rely upon third parties and advocacy groups and partnerships. Call us out, but you got to know the knowledge and the facts. The old adage is if you hear something 3 times, you start believing it, and that is our challenge.
I'd like to note Katie is very ethical, so don't question that.
Thanks so much.
That's really.
I do need to say, someone wrote nice notes on here. So they wrote, Katie, you're the real deal, R-E-E-L.
It's very precious. I don't know
think
who wrote
that's
these,
great.
but they're
That
very
would be
nice.
Natalie Spielman.
And I didn't even know what my theme was, but they wrote for me, best team captain ever. So whoever wrote that, that's how I came up with the word team today. So somebody's doing something that I don't know.
Is that where all the sport? Is that where all the sports references
That's
came
right.
from? Because you're really killing it on that front today. I got to be honest.
Yeah.
Jesse, along those lines, how does transparency sort of make its way to your division in terms of the different departments that you oversee?
Yeah, sure. It's because I'm QE development, which includes planning, zoning, roads, infrastructure, all the fun stuff that often people get excited about. It plays into everything. I will say that I'm an engineer by trade and education. We're not always the best at getting the word out here, but that's really where we start to engage folks like Katie to say, hey, we need to get a message out. How do we make sure that it's actually engaging with people and not just a static PowerPoint or something like that that's not going to bring people in? We've also really started to try to meet people where they are. We used to do public involvement as, step 1, book a school. Step 2, put something in the paper. Step 3, it was very boring. So we would send out 10,000 notices and have 5 people show up. It just wasn't effective. I think what she does and what she's been able to do, and we've been able to do it on a countywide basis, is much more engaging. The response has been better. We're able to meet people, where they are, which a lot of times is, sitting there on their phone.
To your point, Katie, you have had so many instances, I feel like, right? Of meeting, the idea of meeting people where they are, where they're not just like sending an email, right? They're commenting on a thing either because they need information, they have a question in general. And I would imagine that that's one of the things you do the most, right? Is actually sort of, for lack of a description, it's like the 21st century switchboard, which is essentially like handling the questions, but they're going to come in just through a different medium, so to speak, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, to speak to Dr. Casey's point, a lot of those news outlets going away, those media resources that we had, now it's funneled into social media, and social media can be terrible sometimes. People are mean on Facebook. You get on there and they just yell at each other and they yell at us, and it is terrifying sometimes. But I think if you can get them to trust you through transparency, and if we as a county, which I think we do very well across the board, when we can engage them as a resident ourselves, when we say, I understand you, I see you, I know the issues that you're dealing with, you have a valid point, it does something different for the resident, for the person who's just shouting into the void, right? All of a sudden, you've sifted through the negativity and you've found, well, maybe there is something that they're asking. Yeah. Sometimes you're just shouting into the void, and that's okay. So it's the therapy they needed that day, that's fine. But sometimes it truly is they're trying to seek out the right resources and they don't know where to start.
Matter of fact, I think we got a screenshot. And this is a real sort of situation where somebody had a question and folks on our end were able to answer. Can you talk a little bit about sort of how these kinds of things happen?
Yeah, so it is creating content, like Brad said, but it's also answering questions, funneling the right resources, talking to different departments, making sure that the information is correct. And someone had reached out and said, there's signs on Otterdale Road. Otterdale Road is a hot topic, I think, Jesse, right? But this person had reached out and said that there are signs here. Where did these signs come from? What do they mean? We've heard none of these updates about what this sign says. And I'm like, well, I don't know what this is. I've never heard of this either. So I reached out to Chesterfield Department of Transportation. They were able to get that information, answered the lady, and it sounds so simple. But when you read what she says back, right, and for those listening only, she's talking about how she's so thankful that our county as a whole continuously does this. Our communications department as a whole makes sure that we inform people well, and all of our departments collectively, they are the ones that are out here doing the work every day on the roads, in utilities, in parks and rec, that are making these things happen for our community. So to have that recognition of her saying, thank you so much for listening, and I noticed that Chesterfield is doing this across the board, is such a high praise for sure.
I think the interesting part about this too is, I don't know, it was probably 10 or 15 years ago, people pivoted away from actually trying to call someone and find out. Instead, they just posted it on social media and go, hey, does anyone know what this is? And they look for answers and expect them like that. It's been a sea change for us, but we certainly appreciate that folks monitor that stuff so they're not just shouting into the void, they're actually getting answers back now.
Right. Stephanie, for Jesse's folks in transportation, Katie on social, transparency makes a lot of sense. How does that impact what you guys do in procurement? What does transparency mean for you guys?
Transparency is essential for us. It's embedded in everything we do. We don't operate and make purchases behind the scenes, behind closed doors. We operate as an open book. We want to make sure that there's no mystery in the process, that, as you said before, demystifying that. And I think Dr. Casey, hit the nail on the head when he said, it's not just about accountability, it's about trust. And we publish as much information on our website as we possibly can, because we don't want someone to not know what's going on. And whether you're a business or a resident, we want you to have confidence in the way that we're operating.
So, Katie, I want to bring it back to you for a second. In terms of the impact, right? One thing that's been pretty incredible to watch over the last year or so has been sort of that impact that those communications channels have had as they've grown and they've evolved and things of that nature. How would you explain the impact that Chesterfield's social media presence has had and is having? And what do you feel like is kind of like on the what's ahead? What's the next step for those channels?
Yeah, I feel like it's had an impact in 3 areas. Starting with the residents, we hear from real residents online of just choosing how we put out this information is it's informing them, right, of the things that are going on in their backyard. So we hear that daily. Thank you for taking the time to make this engaging so that I actually know about it. We actually have a lot of residents that have recently moved here, and they say, we follow your pages so we know what's going on in Chesterfield. And we're just a government account. Like that's really big, because it could be just the static stuff, but instead they are realizing the actual resources that exist for them in the county. It's very cool. I think it also hits employees. The Director of Communications, Dave Good, often says, okay, but how is this affecting our employees? And we hear employees get excited about what's going out, about where they work. They like to be included in it, and we see that a lot online as well. They're commenting back and forth to each other of like, come work with me. This is what I do every day. This is what it looks like. It's amazing. So it hits residents, it hits employees, and then I think it also just, from a government standpoint, a nonprofit standpoint, to a lot of you in the room, you've reached out to our communications team and asked for trainings. And so we've taken the time to show you like what we're doing differently. If you're interested in that, reach out. We would love to have a conversation. It's bigger than just Chesterfield. And so other localities are noticing that are in the government, nonprofits are noticing, businesses are noticing. And so I think as Chesterfield, we can be proud of that. For 2025, I think that looks like continuing to build trust for the community, to continue to highlight maybe the resources that people aren't familiar with, and hopefully we'll just continue to get Debbie, really. That's my biggest goal.
Stephanie, she's talking about what's ahead in 2025. Obviously, for your shop, a lot of changes, or maybe a lot's not the right term, but there have been changes in terms of the way that things are structured when it comes to local spend. And I know that's a big focus for you going into the new year. Can you talk a little bit about sort of what local spend is, especially to folks in a room like this, and why those changes in policy matter so much, and why they could make a big difference coming into next year?
Sure. Local spend is exactly what it sounds. It is making our purchases locally and, spending and putting that money back into the local economy. Our taxpayer dollars are going back to our community. And, our goal was always to make those local purchases if we can. That is, a huge source of support for the county. What has changed in fiscal year 25 is we've increased our small dollar thresholds, which allows greater access for our local and diverse vendors to be more competitive in that space. So, the message is, if you've been wanting to sell to the county, now is a great opportunity. Now is a great time for you to reach out. And again, we're a resource here to help you if you're unsure on how to go about doing that.
Jesse, along those same lines, on the transportation side, I feel like we talk a lot about road projects, and that makes sense, right? That we talk a lot about sort of where things are and how things are going. One of the things, obviously, on your front is mobility. I'm curious, what are some of the ways that Chesterfield's been working on that, and what do you feel like's ahead in 2025?
So we have a really cool service that launched this past year with GRTC called Microtransit. It's within the Cloverdale district, so essentially runs along Hull Street from sort of the Chippenham area down to about Swift Creek. There's an app on your phone, GRTC Go app. You can book a ride. There's essentially a bus that comes to your curb, picks you up, and then will also take you home from wherever you are if you're within that specific district. It's a pilot program, but very new to the area. We're excited to see that. So, for example, Restaurant Week, if you live within that district, you want to go to, one of the local restaurants along Hull Street, and you don't want to drive during happy hour, you can call the bus, it'll pick you up, you call the bus again, and it'll take you home. It takes about 15 minutes once you ask for the ride for it to get there. So really nice, convenient app, and it's entirely zero fare. So we're hoping to do are they TikToks or gritties or something?
Yes.
Gritties,
and
wow.
you will be dancing
with
in
Katie.
them.
I will not be dancing,
Yes.
but
Yes.
we're going to try
Stay tuned.
If you want to do the gritty, we're all here.
Yeah.
You're welcome to it.
There will be no dancing today,
Okay,
sir.
fair enough. All right, Dr. Casey, we'll close it out here. I've been around here long enough to know that you're not a big fan of resting on your laurels. And I'm just curious, as you look ahead to not just what's ahead for us in the positive, but also in terms of trying to figure out the challenges, right? I think that's a big central, we talked about central tenets earlier, right? Not resting on your laurels isn't just the same thing as saying, like, I want to do better. It's also understanding where are the possibility of changes, right? It's essentially you're in a desert and you're looking to the horizon to try to figure out where those things might be. As you look to 2025, what do you see on that horizon?
Sure. Well, first I need to go back. There's 3 journalist institutions in the room, and when I'm saying that no ethical journalism, they do have the ethics between BizSense, RTD, and VPM. So the ones that are non-ethical, you know who you are, and we know who you are. But anyhow, as far as, again, going into 2025, we are Chesterfield County. You and 379,000 other people are Chesterfield County. We are a local government. It is something that people don't really understand as well and as much. Everyone knows their federal government through schooling and otherwise, media 24/7. People know what states do for the most part. They don't know who we are as much, especially people who come here from afar. Sometimes you can even grow up here and not necessarily know who we are. So we have a lot of work to do together to best espouse that. Regionally, we are the largest locality in the Richmond region. We're the largest locality in the 2 planning district commissions that we are a part of, from the North Carolina line all the way up to Hanover, as far west as Powhatan and east as Surrey County. So it's a large territory. We are the big person who tries to come in the room and act mature. We'll give our wisdom, time, and talent to anything that's important. But the accountability of those other localities rests with those people in those localities. They are family, so we're not going to squabble publicly about what somebody's doing right or wrong. But again, we're going to do all we can on our side of the shop to position Chesterfield to shine well. How others can shine with us is paths they can take. We're going to be doing so many things that are too numerous to list here. But again, some of the heavy lifts that we're going to do that involve participation and engagement involve our zoning ordinances. That is like a blueprint type exercise and a template for how people can live, work, play, and even learn. We need to make the zoning ordinances 2024, 2025, if you will, so we can figure out how people can live together betterly. Multi-generational might be more affordable. How we can pay attention to those in need. Where do people need to live that have addiction recovery issues, domestic violence issues, and other things that are adverse to their lives that can impact your household at a moment's notice. So we're trying to be mindful of everyone in Chesterfield County. On the recreational side of the shop, we want people to have a good experience here. We basically reinvest all of your lodging taxes. When I say they're your lodging taxes, unless you spend a night in a hotel here, you're not paying any taxes. So if you are paying lodging taxes, that's between you and your maker. But that's another story. But anyhow, we invest your lodging taxes into everything sports, visitation, entertainment. So some of the niceties we're putting into our parks and creating new parks and experiences, that's that side of the shop. You as businesses, your business license tax, we reinvest that into economic development purposes. When we try and do site acquisitions or maybe even beginnings of infrastructure for a certain site, you are the leaders in helping us position your monies for that purpose, so that we can be mindful of the precious household tax dollar and where it can go. But, there's going to be some amazing projects that are going to be coming on, and I'll just give an example of one. The Dutch Gap area. For those that don't know the word Dutch Gap, it is a large geographical territory. The history of that goes back thousands of years. It's not just dirt, it's a lot of water, a lot of ways that we can have history and nature come together as never before in perhaps all of Virginia. So I know we're working hard on creating a master plan that may need your help to do that. And again, we're not perfect, as I've said before, but we want to perfect, if you will, what we try and do, but we can't do it alone.
In that video we showed a few minutes ago, or I guess it was a while ago now, Katie was like, "We did it. Guys, I think we did it." So I very much appreciate your time. Appreciate all of you being here for the first live recording of the podcast. Hopefully that was fun. Hopefully they'll ask me to do it again sometime. Thank you very much for all that you guys did and for being here today. I really appreciate it. I'd like to welcome Karen back up to the stage real quick. I think you said you had one.
Do I have one more thing before Karen says goodbye?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going back to Katie, you're the real deal as I'm reading, or real good. I mentioned the word team often, so I'm playing off of that again over and over. And to use another sports analogy, Brad, that I think you'll like, is the one thing I've seen with sports teams that make them successful and what motivates them sometimes is, again, they have some type of something that they can point to, something that inspires them, something that's for young and old to say, this is our mantra, this is our theme going forward. And as you know, for Chesterfield County, what these teams have that make them successful is a mascot. And without a further ado, I want to introduce Cole from Chesterfield 2024 version of Cole, and that's spelled C-O-L-E nowadays in Chesterfield, for those that pay attention to our minor. So with that said, please introduce Cole.
All right, let's do it. Everybody. Well, we very much appreciate all of you being here for the first live podcast and for Cole's first podcast, too. Good job, Cole. All right, Karen, close us out.
I'm going to close it out very quickly to wish each and every one of you a most happy holiday and happy new year.